Hey, how's it going, everybody? I've got the connection going on Instagram at GKJ Publishing. I'm sorry, at GKJ underscore publishing. And hey, cool, we've already got 4 people checked in. All right. Got some. Good news right off the bat. Last night, this afternoon, I posted a image of the one of the title pages inside the book. My fourth book, Hadrian Corvus of Farfel, is complete. It's at the printer. It's getting reviewed right now, and I should hear back probably by tomorrow morning that it's all ready to go, that the appropriate pages are being set up in the website. Those will go live probably in the next week or two, as far as when they're being published. So right now I'm opening it up to hey, everybody there on Instagram. I am opening it up to a Q&A session. And so questions about the series, questions about being an author, and all of those things. So shoot me a question. I'm looking them up here. The first question I have is, when are we getting the HBO show? Actually, to be honest, I haven't talked with HBO. However, I do have a friend of mine who is launching a show on Amazon, on Amazon Prime, and he said that he was going to try and pitch some of the ideas to me that he has. Sorry, let me back up. He said that he was going to talk with someone after the start of January to see what their interest is in possibly with my books being turned into a series. My preference wouldn't be like a live action show because that's really expensive to do. My thought would be something along the lines of animation, kind of like what you would see with like Avatar: The Last Airbender or Voltron: Legendary Defender, something along those lines. But instead of just doing 10 to 13 episodes, I'd hope for like at least 20 to tell the story of one book per season. Will you ever do a podcast or go on a radio show to promote your series? Yeah. So I am actually looking at doing a radio show. There's a local one here in Hanford on K-Fun. I believe it's 92.7. I think that's the radio station. Their call letters are K-Fun, K-F-U-N. They have a morning show called Eggs, Bacon, and Joey in the morning. And I've already been in contact with them. I follow them on Instagram. They follow me, and they're looking at getting me on the show sometime after the start of December, probably just before Christmas, to get on there and promote the books, and especially with book 4 launching before Christmas. So yeah, I do. The next step is to do a podcast, but podcasts are a little bit harder to do because I don't want just to be me talking all the time. Right now, the vlogs are doing well because they're a couple minutes long and I can do those really quickly on my phone. Podcasts usually take a little bit more. They take a little bit more time to do because you have to work on them, make sure the audio sounds good, and you're producing those like weeks in advance. So that is something I'd like to do. It would be easier if I had a little bit of support, which I'm going to pitch right now. I'm on Patreon for anyone who is interested in supporting what I do. Patreon.com/GKJ Publishing. It's up and live. It's running. And so, yeah. Let's see. What are some other questions here? Apparently, Derpy Horse Productions is really excited. I'm not entirely sure why. So, yeah, Dalton. Yeah, cool. What else? Did want to let you guys know, about a week and a half ago, I actually got the ball rolling with an audio format of book one. So Heirs of Menenias is going to be turned into an audiobook. It should be out probably by mid-February on that one. So I'm looking forward to having that being available for people. Once the audiobook is done, it's going to be available on Audible, which is the Amazon side of things, as well as iTunes for all of you Apple users. Haven't set the price yet, but that'll be something we worked out on. That I'll be working on. Question: are you voicing the audiobook? No, I'm currently not voicing the audiobook. I found an awesome narrator in Wyoming who is going to be doing that work. His name is Jeff Beck. And so he's going to be doing the narration, the production side of things. And all I have to do is provide him the material. Please voice the audiobook. I would like to. I've thought about it, and it's very time consuming. And right now I don't personally have the time to be doing an audiobook myself, because just based on the number of words that's in the final draft of the Heirs of Menenias, the book itself is something like 16 hours long, and I don't have a whole lot of time in my day where I can just sit by myself and have no interruptions just to do audio recording. I actually had to schedule this time for the live stream for when my family was actually out doing stuff. I would pay extra to hear your voice in the future if you change your mind. You know what? That is something to consider. That is definitely something to consider. Let's see. Do you have any jobs on the side of being an author? Yes. Because right now being an author is, it's not really paying the bills. So currently I am a substitute teacher. I substitute high school. And so that's what I do. I also do odd jobs around town, whatever I can find. And then as far as writing gigs themselves, I actually do freelance writing online for a couple of different clients. I go through a website called Upwork, where I do editing and actual blogging and writing and stuff for them. Someone said that I'm a good sub. That would be Dalton again, because he knows me and decided to add me on YouTube. Crazy sophomore student. Yeah. Does everything pay well? Well, it depends. Most freelance writing gigs, for example, don't. They're kind of hit and miss. You have to really kind of build up your repertoire, and that's what I'm in the process of doing on Upwork. The work I do as a substitute, that pays pretty well. What I'm making now would be better if I wasn't married and I didn't have kids to deal with or a mortgage. But it is helping sustain what we're doing, how we live and stuff like that. So, yeah, I actually very much enjoy being a sub because I get to go to different environments every day, work with a different group of students, and the more I sub at different locations, the more I get to know the kids, and then I get to pitch my book. Can you turn this book series into a web series? Actually, I would like to turn it into something, some kind of visual media, as well as being a book. Like I said, I've talked with my friend. His name's Kip. He's part of a group they do a series called The Toy Box, where they go to different comic conventions all over the place. And they're actually currently wrapping up the shooting of an entire series for their first season. And what they're looking at doing is they're finishing the contract with Amazon right now. And so as soon as he is done getting that all packaged in the can and ready to ship to Amazon, uh, he said that he is willing to actually help out with trying to put me in contact with people at Amazon to do it as a series, which I think would be really fun. I would love to have my characters in that visual medium. If for those of you who don't follow me on Instagram, back in October, I was actually doing a series of posts where I was matching up some of the characters from the book, from book one, with actors I thought would make for good voice actors um, for the series. Let's see. Okay, question. Okay. Did you do the art for the covers of your books? I like the covers. I can't do digital art. Okay, so no, I actually I didn't need the cover art. I had two different artists work on the cover art for me. The first and third book, those were done by a friend of mine in Lemoore, California. He's a really talented graphic artist, and so he looked at. I gave him an idea of what I wanted, and he ran with it. He did a really great job with the cover art, especially the cover art for book 3. I think that one was really great because my idea for that one was actually based off of the Batman animated series from the early 90s, where they drew all their art on black paper, so their color palette was different. And so they brought the colors out of the shadows, and that was really what I was trying to draw out of for that cover, because that particular book focuses on the vampires in my series, and I figured these are characters who are coming out of the shadows. They're being given new purpose and new life, and that was kind of my goal for it from an artistic perspective. So, yeah. But the second book was a former student of mine. She did the cover art. The only thing digital that we did differently was we added the rain, the schematic. If you go to the companion website, archivesoftheFiveKingdoms.com, and then you add in /books, it will actually take you and it'll show you the screenshots of the different covers. And book 2, which is called The Destiny of Dragons, the only digital effect that we did on that one was we added a rain effect, so it looks like there's rain pouring down in the foreground. If you haven't, you should commission David Shin. I'm going to see the person you're talking about. I don't know who David Shin is. Can you subscribe to me? I guess so. Yeah. If you're on YouTube or Instagram, yeah, add me. I'll add you right back. Yeah. So right now, actually, the cover art for book 4 is done. That was actually done by an artist out of Italy named Corsini. Don't know his first or real last name, but I actually really like the cover art. It does some really cool stuff and kind of captures the essence of what I'm looking to do with this 4th book as well. Okay, cool. Thank you. And I'll just call you Dan or Shup. I don't know. Screen names, they're kind of fun and goofy. So yeah, the digital art that's done for the covers is well, not all of it's digital. Like I said, the art for book 2 was actually hand drawn, and I scanned it into the computer. we added the digital rain effect, and that became the cover art as it is. What else? Shoot me in some other questions. The more, the better. Hello? I'm actually going to post, for those of you who don't have me on Instagram, I'm actually going to be posting the my screen name on there, and you guys can check that out. Add me on Instagram for those of you who haven't done that. So yeah. Oh, okay. We got a question. Would you consider doing jobs on Fiverr in your free time? Something like voiceover. Yeah, actually, I'm on Fiverr, and that's actually how I found the artist who did the digital art for the maps that I have for my books. So let me back up. The companion site is a true companion site. So if you were to go on to Archives of the Five Kingdoms.com/the maps, or I think it's just maps. You go on there, you can find the maps just fine. There's 3 maps on there: one for book 1, one for book 2 and 3, and then one for book 4. And those maps were done digitally by an artist also out of Italy that I found on Fiverr. She does a really great job. Especially, it's been a couple years since she did the art for the map on for the first 2 maps, so she had to go back to an older style that she hadn't done in a couple years for the map on book 4. But as far as doing voiceover work, yeah, I would love to do. I would love to do it. It's like I said, it's really time consuming, and I have to have the time to be able to do it. Okay, let's see here. Do you have any plans once you're done with the series? Kind of, sort of. I'm actually working on another project right now. A friend of mine out of Modesto, his name's Joe Cahill. He runs Steamhouse Entertainment, based out of Modesto. They've done comic conventions up and down the Central Valley in the past. They did one up in Modesto not too long ago. He does independent filmmaking as well, and he's currently working on a science fiction film. The working title is called Cadets, Missouri, and I have actually he's actually asked me to be the screenwriter for the script, and so I'm currently working on a treatment for that right now, kind of a palate cleanser, just to get my my sci-fi wheels turning, and it's really fun because it's going to be like a core group of characters, and I'm getting to write. It's a different type of writing because I'm not doing narrative. I'm doing mostly just dialogue, and so I have to know what's going to be happening with the characters. We've gone through, and one of the things that Joe and I have done is we've actually been talking a lot through Facebook Messenger and whatnot, and we pieced together a new version of the character lists, and so that was a lot of fun. We tweaked the characters to make them a little bit more ethnic, because the characters were they all had like pretty white sounding names, and I'm like, okay, as a writer you write what you know, but I figured let's tweak it around so we can make it work to have more of an open cast. Let's see here. I know who PewDiePie is. I'm not subscribing to him. How often do you get writer's block, and how do you overcome it? Writer's block. Wow, that's a good one. So with regards to writer's block, that is kind of a hard thing. I was dealing with writer's blocks for a while between 2010 and 2012. I would start a project, I'd get probably a few pages in, and then I would put it down because I had no interest in it. And one of the things that I found in 2013, as I was starting my master's program, is that I start writing more. I'm more creative when I have a high stress situation and I'm under the gun. So like when I'm in school, I am great when it comes to writing. So the last couple of years working as a teacher, working as a sub, I have been doing a ton of writing over just the last 5 years. I finished, I perfected book one. Perfected is kind of a long stretch because I'm sure there are things I could go back and redo and do a second version of it a little bit better, make it cleaned up. Um, uh, I finished book two. Well, book two actually was written back in 2009, but I was able to go back through and edit it and make it the way I wanted it to be. I finished writing book three because book three I actually started writing in 2010. I got one chapter in, and then I lost complete interest and focus on it. I started working on other things. And then with book four actually started as two different writing projects that I somehow managed to piece together and make fit, and it worked really, really well. So one of the things I have taken the habit of doing is, and I think whoever it is who suggested having a notepad in on your smartphone or smart device, I really like having that notepad there because if I have an idea, I start putting it down. Usually it's a quote, an idea for a quote, or the start for a story. Okay. So this is coming from Tizzy Miller on Instagram. Hey, so giving you a shout out there. When is the next Hanford Comic Con, and are you going to be in it? As far as I'm aware, the next Hanford Comic Con is going to be in February. It's being put on by Ohana. I'm actually not signed up for it at current. The next Ohana Con that I'm going to be doing is up in Fresno. It's at the Ramada Inn, right off of the 41 exit at Shaw Avenue. So right over there near Fashion Fair. I will be there as well. Actually, as far as Hanford is concerned, I will be at. I'm going to be part of the Hanford Art Hop in December. That's coming up in a couple weeks. Just a moment. My dogs need to be let out. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. I have a chocolate lab who has the attention span of like nothing. My toddler actually has a better attention span. So as far as Comic Cons, I don't have anything coming up until January, but the December Art Hop in downtown Hanford, I will be there. I don't know if I'll have book 4 yet, because one of the things I want to do is I want to see how much interest is in it before I personally order copies to have on stock. But there will be a pre-order that will happen in the next week or so. I haven't decided what day I'm going to launch that. Okay, let's see. Oh, shut up. Don't unsubscribe to me. It's just PewDiePie doesn't make videos that I enjoy. Let's see. I do want to touch back on the topic of writer's block. One of the best things I found is that if you get an idea for writer's block, or you're dealing with writer's block, but you get an idea, write it down. Whether it's on a Post-it, whether it's on a notepad or anything like that, write it down. I keep a pen with me at all times. My favorite and my go-to pens are the Pilot G2 series. This one is the 7 millimeter size, or 0.07 millimeter size, I guess. I like these. They're really great. The nice thing about it is that you can, if you go to Staples or Amazon, you can get refill cartridges, and you just pulled out the used one, or in the case of me, you usually get a pack of about 8 or 9 of these, and I just use them because I'll lose them. My daughter steals them. My wife steals them. So it's just there's a lot to it. Yeah, right. That's someone else who joined on Instagram. Great. Gotta let my dog back in. Be right back. All right. So where were we? Okay. The other thing that I found that helps with writer's block is do something meaningless or mindless. One of the things I found that really helps is playing video games. Up until my Xbox decided to fry itself, I was playing pretty frequently, almost daily. And what that was doing, it was giving me something to do that was kind of like a moving meditation. I could just empty my mind and focus on that, and all those other issues that I was having pop up, in the writing process, they went away. The other thing I tried to do is I wouldn't force myself to write. I let the inspiration hit me, but I kept notepads and notebooks and stuff like that with me all the time. That way I could write when I needed to. You have a favorite book of your series? This is coming from Mel Gage on Instagram. Do I have a favorite book in my series? I would have to say I really liked reading through book 3. I have read my own work. Each book I've read at least 4 or 5 times, which is unusual for me. Usually when I read a book, I usually read it once, and then I put it down because my brain just kind of holds on to the information. There's only a handful of books written by other authors that I've read more than once. But for me, because of the whole editing process and the proofing and all that, I'm having to read through my books at least 3 or 4 times, if not more. I can say with book 4, I read through it at least 5 times. Book 3, though, so far as the published books, I really, really, really enjoy book 3 because of how concise the story is. It takes place on the same time frame as book 2, but at the same time, it has its own story. It goes its own way, and the story was about dealing with fathers and father figures. So that's one of the things I really appreciate about it, because I've always wanted to have a strong relationship with my dad, and I do. There was a point in time where it was a little weak, and that was right at the end of high school going into my college years. But that's all in the past. And so in the dedication for that book, I dedicated it actually to my parents, specifically acknowledging my dad and some of the ways that he has inspired me just as a man. So let's see here. I'll take another one from YouTube, and then I've got another one coming up on Instagram. On the topic of video games, do you play any of the Elder Scrolls series? They seem similar to your books. Actually, I don't. Most RPGs are. I like more action-packed games, so I'm usually playing like the Assassin's Creed series, Tomb Raider. Halo is definitely a fan favorite for me, and the Arkham series, Batman Arkham. I like games that are a little bit more action-packed. I don't mind some leveling up. That's fine, but I couldn't get into Mass Effect, for example, because I spent the first hour and a half playing that game, and all I did was stand around talking to people. I couldn't do anything. And when I tried to do anything, there was nothing available for me to do, and I got bored, and I said, forget that. Whereas games like Destiny, which, I love the world that Bungie has built, especially the Halo franchise, but with Destiny, it was all the same thing over and over and over again. There's really no story. And for me, that's what I look for. I look for games with a story. But if they deal with high fantasy, like the Elder Scrolls, Skyrim, stuff like that, I really get turned off. And the reason being is because I don't want to pilfer anything from those stories. I don't want what I do, what I write, to be a ripoff of what other people have created. It sounds corny. It sounds like a cheat to get out really answering that, but um, it's more of a way to protect myself from being looked at as a hack. I look at writers like James Patterson, who mass produces books like every 5 hours, and I get tired of people saying, "Oh, he's a great author." He doesn't even write his own books. He dictates the general idea for a story, has his secretary do the ghostwriting, and then he just signs off on it. I don't want to be one of those authors. I want to be as authentic and true to my craft as possible. Okay, Tizzy Miller asks another great question on Instagram. How long does it take for you to write a book? That's kind of a relative term. So let me go back. Book one, a lot of the characters started off as comic book characters that I was designing between 8th grade, freshman, and sophomore year. And I drew out the characters. I had these ideas for how they're going to be modern superheroes or supervillains, and I couldn't make it work. I tried. I kept working on it, and it didn't. It just didn't flow for me. So when I was living in Japan, I got the idea of turning the characters into medieval fantasy characters. Made some tweaks to how the characters were designed, their background, stuff like that. And then I started writing. And the initial process on the writing, I actually started writing in May of 2001, about 2 months before I came back from Japan. And then I finished in January or February of 2002. And when I went back to go do the editing on that, I really did not care for the story. It was really weak in its storytelling. It was really sophomoric in the overall structure. One of the things that really set me off is I had 9 primary protagonists, and there's so many characters to keep track of that I just couldn't. Not that I was bored with it or I had some kind of ADD thing. It was just it wasn't good. So I took all of my notebooks. I had all of my writing. I took all the print ups I had, and I set them in a barrel. I set them on fire, literally, and started over from scratch. And it took me a couple of years to really figure out what I wanted to do with it. I knew I wanted to keep it in the same genre. I knew I wanted to keep some of the main characters that I had developed, but I just had to retweak it and do something a little bit different with it. So it took me almost about 10 years just to write book one from start to finish. Book two, actually, I had book one done before I started writing book two, but I had to retool the prologue a couple of times. It took me like 4 or 5 passes just to get it the way it is now, before editing, before formatting or anything like that. And then book two, I actually started writing book two April 2009, so about a month before I graduated college. And I finished it December 31st, 2009, so on New Year's Eve. So that was the shortest amount of time that I've ever taken to write a single book, roughly 8.5 months. And that was just the writing process. That wasn't even the editing. It wasn't even the creative, the adaptions or anything like that. Book three took longer because I started that one in 2010. Didn't finish writing it until the fall of 2016, or going into the winter of 2017. And then I finished the writing and editing on that last summer, so summer of 2017. Went through all the editing process, the formatting process, and that came out last October. Book four, like I said earlier, started off as 2 different projects in 2012 that somehow revealed themselves to merge together. And that's what I've got now. Tizzy Miller, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. I knew her from high school, and she thought the notebooks and binders that I had looked pretty cool. And I'm not even that good of an artist. So, okay, going to go back over to the questions here on YouTube. Do I like Fortnite? I'm good. I'm just no, no, I don't. It has no story. It has no story. I'm going to respond to that question the same way that Liam Neeson responds to Jar Jar Binks. Just because you have the ability to speak doesn't mean you ought to. Actually, no, that's not the quote. It means doesn't denote intelligence or something like that. I don't know. Phantom Menace was a crappy movie. Definitely better than Attack of the Clones, but still crappy. And I'm a big Star Wars fan. How hard is it to try and be an original and unique in such a popular and saturated genre like fantasy? Do you do you think you've succeeded in doing so? It's really hard to be original. Everything's been done under the sun. I mean, my elves are kind of a hodgepodge between what you would see in Tolkien or other fantasy series. That elegant thing. But one of the things I do is to get away from that trope is very early on I explain in book 1 that the elves and humans have intermarried, and so they've created a race called halflings or half elves. So the culture is a blend of human cultural practices and elf cultural practices. There's a little bit more focus, especially if you're closer tied into the royal family, who has a little bit more elf culture to them, where they will use the ancient language. If you're definitely a magic user, you're going to be using it. So I try to be a little bit different with that. One of the things I really try to do to be as unique as possible within the genre is that a lot of the different races they're interconnected. I don't want to give anything away because you really need to read through the series in order to understand that interconnection. But like, for example, the vampires, the elves, and the dragons all share this intertwined history from beginning to end, and that interconnection really plays itself out in book 3 without going into too great a detail. Oh, good. I'm glad someone agrees with me on Fortnite. Honestly, I haven't played anything on a console in like 6 months, and it's killing me. Because I want to have a working console for when Halo Infinity comes out. Okay, got another question over here. Do you sit and write all day? Do you have a job and then come home and write? So I kind of stuck on this a little bit before. I do sub, and so when I'm working on my sub jobs, I do take writing with me. I was in the process of editing through book 4 as the school year picked up, so I was editing while I was subbing. I would have it with me. I would especially do the editing during prep periods and stuff like that, or I'd be putting those edits that I made on paper back into the computer file. A lot of the times I don't sit and write all day, just because one, nothing would ever get done. If I sat there just writing pen to paper, I'm one of those people. I kind of go autistic, not really autistic, and I'm not trying to offend anybody who is on the spectrum, but I get really focused on what I'm doing, and a lot of other responsibilities go by the wayside. And so I've got to be really careful about that because I do have a toddler at home, and he's incredible. He's an incredible kid, but he needs some attention because he will just get into stuff if I don't. And then, but also, I do come home. I do a lot of my writing at nighttime because it's quiet. The family's sleeping. I'm kind of a night owl as it is, and so I will be up until 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, working on making edits or writing, just to make sure that what I've got is something decent. Okay. Let's see. I've been struggling with my. I don't know what ligma is, Dan, but glad that I was able to inspire you. Um, have I lost sleep? Um, yeah, actually, I remember having this moment um, in college. I had this great apartment at the CSUMB campus where I was. It was a studio apartment, so I lived by myself. I didn't have to worry about roommates. I can come and go. I didn't have to communicate with anybody. It was wonderful. I'm kind of a hermit that way. I like my space, and so it makes me impossible to live with. God bless my wife. But um, I had this one moment. I went to sleep really late because I was studying for a midterm, and um, all of a sudden, I could not get this idea out of my head, and I cannot remember for the life of me what it was. And so I got up and I got on my computer, and I just started typing away, and I could not I could not get done fast enough. Like I had my fingers were just flying across the keyboard, and by the time I finished, 2.5 hours had passed. It was like 4 o'clock in the morning, maybe 4:30, and I had finished an entire chapter. It was crazy. It was crazy. So that was one of those moments where I did definitely lose sleep, and I did have a class the following, the following night. So for those of you just joining, I would really appreciate if you are commenting. Please comment questions that have to do with the content of the video. Whatever happened with me and my career has nothing to do with a group chat. And Corbab, I think I know who you are, so I'm going to be blocking you. All right. Sorry about this. I am in the process of removing. Actually, in the process of trying to block out Corbab because, well, he is who he is. Anyway, as far as doing a book giveaway, I don't because it costs me money to have these books printed and shipped over from the printer. I usually try not to give books away because that's me losing money. Because I can buy them wholesale, about $5 or so, and I can turn around and I can sell them for $50, not 50, 15, 1 5, $15, and so it would actually be me losing money if I were to give them away. However, I am open once book 4 is launched. It will be officially launched at the beginning of 2019. My thought was doing a box set for giveaway. However, I did give a set of books, 3 books, one of each title, for a charity back in September. At the end of September, there was an organization. It's called CASA. It's a child advocacy group here in Kings County. My mom was working with them, and they had a fundraiser that they do every year at the end of September. And so I donated a set of books to them to be raffled off. And the person who won put in a lot of raffle tickets for that. And I was really excited that someone actually was eager to have my books. So it was great. Um, Someone named Mohit asked me where I'm from. I'm from California. I'm just going to leave it at that. Central California. Um, so Tizzy Miller is asking about pre-ordering book 4. If I pre-order, when will I get book 4? Before Christmas? Yeah, more than likely. If you are pre-ordering book 4, that gives me a running count of how many orders I have to get in. That pre-order money comes to me directly. That allows me to go and place the order through the printer, and I'm able to get the copies I need, and then I'm able to get those out to the people who order them once I have the shipment come in. The pre-order isn't up yet. It should be up probably by December 1st, which is a week from today, and I'll keep you guys updated on that as we get closer. For those of you on YouTube, I am not going to be talking about anything that happened at another school site. I'm talking only about the writing. So, yeah. Someone asked me what this channel is about. This channel is about me. I'm an independent author. I'm a writer. And this is just me putting out material to promote my books and to get as many followers as possible in as much of an organic way as I can, because I don't have a major publishing house backing me up like some of the more famous authors out there. So I'm doing all the legwork myself. So yeah. Any other questions about the series? Does substituting getting in the way of writing or distract you from writing to the best of your ability? No. What I do job-wise does not distract me. In fact, what it does is it gives me interactions with real people. It gives me a gauge of what students are dealing with. The low end of my the age range for my books is about 14 to 15. So getting to work with high school students, it gives me a gauge of what kids are interested in. It gives me a gauge of what they like to read, what they don't. Unfortunately, we live in an era of increasing illiteracy, either because it's by choice or because somehow the school system failed students. And I'm amazed that with where I live, I have not saturated the market yet. I keep going to events locally where I keep finding more people who have not heard of my books, or they have heard of it and they want to get the next one. And so I haven't saturated the market to the point where I'm not selling anything. In fact, I very rarely have any event where I don't sell. Even I went up to an event up in Fresno a week ago today. I was at Pop Stop Collectibles at Bullard and Shaw. I'm sorry, Bullard and West. And I was actually able to sell 2 sets of books. It was great. Really a lot of fun. In that instance, I got to make contact with someone who works within the libraries. He manages 3 of the branches up in Fresno, and he wants me in the new year to go up and do an author panel up there as a local independent author. In fact, libraries thrive on stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to that. Do you have an agent that might help you promote? I do not have an agent. Having a literary agent is kind of a catch-22. Kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. So a literary agent basically is kind of the same premise as having a movie agent or a TV show agent or whatever. They take 10, 15% of whatever you make on your contract, and then they promote the hell out of you. The problem with finding a literary agent is that most literary agents, unless they're brand new to the business and have like maybe a few connections, they don't like taking independent authors unless that independent author has an offer from a major publishing house. But at the same time, most major publishing houses do not take unsolicited material from independent authors. So if I went to go to say like Tor or Scholastic or some of the other major publishing houses that are out there, and I said, hey, here's my work, what do you think? They'd be like, thank you, but no thank you. You're unsolicited. We don't really care. So it's like I said, it's a catch-22. However, I have been in contact with an agent, a literary agent from Greenberg Press, and seeing if they're interested. So hopefully we'll find out. Actually, book 4 is coming out at the end of this year, but the official launch is going to be at the Fresno convention that I'm going to be doing on January 20th. That's why I'm really going to be promoting the heck out of it. So most of my books are they're the medieval fantasy. I have a couple of other projects that are in the works. The screenplay that I'm working on from my friend up in Modesto is one of those projects. I do have another project I'm working on that's a cyberpunk series that it's a series of vignette stories. So they all have the same timeline. They all have a core theme, but it's a different group of characters in each story. So I'm still in the process of piecing that together. I have a general idea of how I'd like it to look, but I'm not there yet. I've already posted the Instagram further up. Oh, you're asking somebody else. Never mind. Let's see here. Yeah. One of the downfalls here in where we live is that there are no bookstores. The closest bookstore is in Fresno, and I mean it's great if you want to go to Barnes and Noble. It's a quick 45-minute drive, but Barnes and Noble's okay and all. They have pretty decently priced books, but there's nothing local here. However, someone I do know, Nate Odom, he's probably not even listening to this. He'll probably catch it on the rebroadcast. But Nate is actually looking to open a bookstore, at least a used bookstore here in Hanford. Probably, I think, in April, something like that. Yeah, well, I mean, as far as marketing to students, yeah, I mean, it keeps me in the pulse. And see, I think that's what a lot of authors tend to forget about, is that they have a particular market of how they like to do, and I don't think they really get the idea of what their audience really likes. They just keep pumping out the same material. James Patterson, for example. I don't think anybody really likes James Patterson. It's just his books are really easy to read. I mean, you could pretty much read them at a middle school level, and the only thing that would make them inappropriate for middle school students is the content. Let's see. Someone said on Tizzy on Instagram said you should have a book party when book 4 comes out. That would be cool. I don't know the first thing about doing a book party, but it would be great. I do know that that the owner of Blue Door Massage and Spa locally, her husband is currently reading through book 1, I think. I just found out my brother's girlfriend knows them, and she told me that last week. So I was really excited about that because that encourages me. And then I like it when I have people who have been reading through the series and they say, yeah, I'm ready for the next book. So good question here. Can you leave your books at a local library for people to read? Actually, my books are currently at local libraries in Kings County. There's a copy of each of the books. Actually, I think there's a copy of each of the books at Lemoore, Corcoran, and Hanford. So you can go into your local library branch. You can look up the books. You can check them out. You can read them. And they've actually been checked out several times at the Hanford branch, from what I understand. I've logged on there, I've looked to see if they've been checked out, and they've been checked out a few times. When you market to students, you can steal their ideas and get away with it, kind of like that movie Big Fat Liar. Actually, no. I actually try to respect the students I work with. If they've got a really great idea, I encourage them to pursue it rather than using their idea for my own. I hate doing that. I've had people steal stuff from me, and I really don't like it. So to show respect for others and their creative content, I'll try to give them ideas, but I won't take their idea and use it for my own. Let's see. All right. Sorry about that. Any other questions? So yeah. I will say this. One of the things that really inspires me that I do try to borrow from is I do try to borrow from sci-fi, not fantasy. I actually don't read a whole lot of other fantasy authors when I'm writing. I do. I will read a lot of science fiction and graphic novels, and I look for ideas of what I can do there. Not necessarily characters or anything or story devices. I look for like tropes. So, like for example, I watched through the series Altered Carbon back in February when it came out to Netflix, and I'm a big fan of cyberpunk. I think it's a lot of fun. I was a kid when the first Blade Runner movie came out. I love that movie. The book by Philip K. Dick is really awesome. But one of the things I like about cyberpunk is that there's some really cool sciencey things that can be done. I'm like, well, what would that look like if I had an elf mage or a dwarf or something do that thing, but on a more medieval level? And so that's one of the things I try to do. Okay. Do you ever base your characters off of people you meet in real life? Yeah. Yeah, I do. Um, I've got a couple of scenes in some of my books, and at least for like in book 2, there's a scene where the main character is he's staying overnight with a family that he helped, and as kind of a quid pro quo circumstance, because he helped them out in a pinch, they're giving him a place to stay for the night. And the conversation between the husband and wife plays out like something I experienced with my parents, between my just the dialogue. And my dad actually called me up. He'd been reading through the book, called me up and said, "Hey, did you write that scene based off your mom and I?" And I said, "Yeah, I did." He's like, "That was really funny." However, especially book 1, there's a lot of characters that I based off of real people. There's a character in there, and we're coming down to the wire here. We only got about 40 seconds left, so I will be cutting this off right at 8:00. But there's a character in book 1. His name is Xavier Mace, and he is he's a really cool character. I based him off of my best friend, and so it started off as a comic book character that I had been designing in high school. It tweaked it again during that time in Japan, and he became the character that he is. And so my best friend has read through the book. He really appreciated having that in there. And so there we go. So that's it. I will try to answer some of these last questions in my vlog this next week, which will be out on Saturday morning. So catch you guys on the flip side, and www.archivesofthe5kingdoms.com.